It was a cold evening on the alien world of Valar 9, a planet where humans were only simple workers. The streets were made of metal and dust, and the air was filled with smoke from star engines. Lights from alien markets glowed in purple and blue, and the voices of many species filled the air. Among the crowd walked Evan Holt, a human engineer who fixed cargo ships for low pay. He had worked all day and was tired, hungry, and just wanted to go home. As he walked past the market, he saw something that made him stop. Near a trash bin, half hidden under a broken crate, sat a small alien girl. Her skin was light silver, her eyes big and bright blue, but full of hunger and fear. She wore torn clothes, her tiny hands shaking as she stared at a candy shop window. Inside, alien children laughed, eating sweets that shone like crystal. The little girl didn't move, didn't beg. She only looked quietly. Evan felt a strange pain in his chest. He looked at his credits, just enough for his dinner, maybe a warm drink. But he turned around, walked into the shop and bought the smallest candy they had. It was wrapped in shining gold paper, the kind that poor workers never buy. When he came out, the girl looked up in fear, ready to run. He smiled softly and held out the candy. "Take it," he said, his voice calm. "You look hungry." The alien girl's eyes widened. Her lips trembled as she whispered in a soft, strange accent. "For me?" Evan nodded. "For you." She slowly reached out, took it and held it close like a treasure. He smiled again and said, "Don't eat it too fast." The girl smiled back, a small, shy smile, but then she froze. A loud alarm echoed through the market. "Search all exits!" "The royal child is missing," shouted alien guards with weapons. They began checking every face, every child, every shadow. Evan looked at the girl. Her blue eyes turned wide with fear, tears forming. She tried to run, but he grabbed her hand gently. "Stay quiet," he whispered. He pulled her into a dark corner between two metal crates. The guards marched past, scanning the area with red lights. Evan held his breath, his heart pounding. He could feel her shaking beside him. When the guards finally moved away, he slowly let go. "You need to go," he said. But she didn't move, only looked at him with strange sadness. She whispered, "Why help me? Humans never help my kind," Evan sighed. "Because someone should." The girl blinked, confused by his answer. Before leaving, he took off his old jacket and placed it around her. "It's cold," he said. "Stay warm." For a long moment, she just stood there. Then she said quietly, "When I return, I will remember this, human." Her words were strange, too mature for a child, too heavy for that small voice. Evan smiled and said, "Just promise me you'll be safe." She nodded once, then ran into the dark alley, disappearing among the fog. Evan walked home under the neon lights. He didn't know why, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. He didn't even know her name that night. When he lay on his old bed, he kept hearing her last words. "I will remember this." He laughed softly, thinking it was just a child's way of saying thank you. But outside his window, far away on the other side of the market, alien ships hovered in the sky, searching with bright beams of light. And among the guards was a tall alien general shouting, "She must be found. The royal heir cannot vanish." Evan had no idea that the little girl he had helped was no ordinary child. He had no idea that his small act of kindness had just changed the future of an entire empire. And as the night grew darker, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they too remembered what he had done. 20 years would pass before he learned the truth. But on that cold night, all he knew was that a hungry girl had smiled because of him, and somewhere in the silent sky, fate had already started to move. Because the girl who ate his candy would one day return, not as a beggar, not as a child, but as a queen. And her first words on her return would shake the galaxy. 20 years passed since that cold night on Valar 9. The city had grown brighter, richer, and crueler. Humans now worked as loaders, cleaners, and ship repairers for alien masters. They were paid less, trusted less, and forgotten by history. But one man still lived quietly in a corner of the spaceport, Evan Holt. His hair had turned gray, his hands rough from years of fixing broken machines. He lived inside his old cargo ship, the Sol Wanderer, now more rust than metal. Every morning he woke before dawn, fixed whatever paid him a few credits, and drank recycled coffee that tasted like ash. He didn't dream anymore. Life had become a loop of survival. He had long forgotten the little alien girl, or maybe he had buried that memory deep to avoid the pain of hope. One night, As he was closing his ship's hatch, a strange sound echoed outside, a soft metallic knock 3 times. Slow and calm, he frowned, stepped out, and saw no one. Only a small metal box sitting on the ramp. Glowing faint blue, there was no sender's mark. No, nothing. Cautiously, he opened it. Inside was a single piece of golden candy. The same kind he had bought 20 years ago, and beside it, a small royal insignia, the mark of the Valaran throne. Evan's heart skipped. His hand trembled as he held it up to the light. "Impossible," he whispered. A knock came again, louder this time when he opened the door. A tall alien stood there, face hidden under a hood. Her voice was calm but firm. "Evan Holt, the Queen of Valar requests your presence." He stared in shock. "Queen? Why would she want me?" The figure simply said, "You once gave her something she never forgot." And before he could ask more, the figure was gone, vanishing into the fog. That night Evan couldn't sleep. He sat in his old pilot chair, turning the candy over and over. His mind spun with questions. Had the girl really become queen? Was it even possible? Maybe it was a trick, a setup by alien authorities who hated humans. But deep inside, something told him it was real. Next morning, he went to the local bar, a place full of mechanics and traders. The hollow screen above the counter showed alien news. The headline read, "New Queen crowned on Valar Prime, youngest ruler in history." Her face appeared on the screen, beautiful, strong, silver-skinned with bright blue eyes. The same eyes he had seen shivering in the dark 20 years ago. Evan froze, his mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. "Stars above," he whispered. "It's her." People around him noticed his pale face. "What's wrong, old man?" asked a miner. Evan forced a smile. "Nothing, just a ghost from the past." But his heart was pounding like thunder. He rushed back to his ship, opened his locker, and took out an old photo of the marketplace, the only memory of his younger days. In the corner of the picture, half hidden behind a light pole, was a small blur of silver, the same little girl. Looking at him, caught in that one frame, for the first time in years, he felt something awaken inside him, hope mixed with fear. He knew what it meant when a queen summoned a human. Many never came back, but the candy meant something else. It meant she remembered that evening. A coded message came through his ship's old comm screen. "Pilot Evan Holt. Authorization granted for royal travel. Destination Valar Prime. Status: personal summons by the Queen." He stared at the glowing words, unsure whether to laugh or run. But deep down, he already knew his choice. As he prepared the ship, strange things began to happen. Other humans looked at him differently. Some whispered that he had made a secret deal. Others warned him that the Queen was dangerous. "Don't go," said his friend Rax, a cyborg mechanic. "Humans vanish on Valar Prime. You'll be next." Evan smiled weakly. "If this is the end, I'll at least know why." When the Sol Wanderer lifted off, the night sky opened like an ocean of stars. He watched the alien city shrink behind him. In his hand, he still held the candy. He had never eaten it, only stared at it as it caught the light. It was a symbol now, a bridge between two worlds. He whispered to himself, "What are you planning, little one?" Far away in the shining towers of Valar Prime, the new queen stood by her window. Her blue eyes looked at the stars as she spoke softly. "He's coming," she said. A royal guard beside her bowed. "Your Majesty, the human?" She nodded slowly, her gaze cold and warm at once. "Yes, the human who taught me kindness." The guard frowned. "But the council," she interrupted, "will learn that kindness is not weakness." Outside, thunder rolled across the alien skies, and as Evan's ship entered hyperspace, fate turned its wheel once more. The man who gave candy to a hungry girl was on his way to meet the Queen of 1,000 Worlds, and none in the galaxy knew what would come next. The journey to Valar Prime was long and silent. Stars passed by like ghosts as Evan's old ship drifted through the darkness. He hadn't been to the alien capital in years last time. He was just a mechanic who wasn't allowed past the service docks. Now he was traveling under a royal summons. Even thinking about it made him uneasy. He looked out of the window. The royal insignia blinked on his screen every few minutes, a golden mark that opened all checkpoints. Guards scanned it, bowed, and waved him through without a word. That alone was enough to make other pilots whisper. A human being treated with respect? That never happened. Something powerful was waiting for him ahead. When his ship landed on the shining spaceport of Valar Prime, Evan stepped out into a world he had only seen in stories. Towers of silver glass rose into the clouds. Bridges of light connected them like veins of fire. The air was rich with the smell of flowers that glowed blue. Aliens of all shapes and colors filled the walkways, but all stopped to stare at the human walking among them. Escorted by royal guards, Evan kept his head down. He could feel their eyes, some curious, some hateful. The guards said nothing, their silver armor reflecting his face as they led him through long halls. Finally, they reached the grand gates of the Valaran Palace. The doors opened with a deep sound, and what he saw inside made his heart stop. The palace was covered in giant murals, paintings that told the history of Valar. He saw wars, victories, and the rise of the queen. But in the corner of one great wall, hidden among the colors, was an image that made his breath catch. A human man kneeling and giving candy to a small alien child. The candy glowed gold in the art, and beside it, the words written in alien script. Mercy begins with one act. Evan stepped closer, whispering, "No, it can't be." But before he could touch the mural, a voice echoed through the hall. "It is," the voice said, soft and calm. Yet commanding, Evan turned. There she stood, the Queen of Valar. She was taller than he remembered, elegant and glowing with faint blue light. Her silver skin shimmered like water, her eyes the same deep blue he had seen 20 years ago. But there was something else in them now. Power and loneliness. She wore a crown that pulsed with light like a living star. Everyone in the hall bowed deeply, but Evan just stood frozen. He didn't know what to do, what to say. She walked down the stairs slowly, her long robe brushing the floor. When she reached him, she smiled faintly. "Do you still remember that night, human?" Evan swallowed hard, his voice cracked. "You were that girl." "In the market," she nodded. "Yes, you gave me candy, and warmth when the world gave me none." He stared at her, speechless. All around them, alien nobles whispered angrily. A human speaking directly to the queen. It was forbidden, but she ignored them completely. "You once told me to stay safe," she said softly. "I did. And I became what they feared most, a queen who remembers kindness." Evan couldn't believe what he was hearing. He finally said, "Why call me here after all these years?" She stepped closer, her eyes locking on his. "Because I owe you a debt that no crown can repay." She turned toward her council, her voice now loud, royal, unshakable. "This human is my honored guest. He will stay in the palace under my protection." Gasps filled the room. One noble shouted, "Your Majesty, he's human. They are not our equals." The queen's gaze turned sharp as a blade. "Then learn to see what I see," she said coldly. The hall fell silent. Her guards lowered their weapons, and no one dared speak again. She turned back to Evan, her voice soft again. "I built my rule on one belief, that mercy is strength, and you gave me that belief long ago." Evan felt a strange warmth rise in his chest. For the first time in decades, someone looked at him not as a worker, but as a person. Still, he couldn't ignore the danger in the air. The council's eyes burned with silent hatred. He knew trouble was coming that night. He was given a room in the east wing of the palace. Soft lights glowed from the walls, the air filled with sweet alien music. But Evan couldn't sleep. He stood by the window, looking at the twin moons hanging over the city. Somewhere deep down, he knew this peace was temporary. He had entered a world of politics, power, and danger, and in that world, being human was still a curse. As he turned away, he noticed something on the table, a small plate with a piece of golden candy resting on it. Beside it, a note in the queen's handwriting, "Tomorrow. Your answers begin." Evan smiled faintly, his heart both heavy and curious. He didn't know it yet, but by sunrise, he would be caught in a battle that would decide the fate of two species. The queen had remembered him, but so had those who wanted her dead. Morning light spilled through the glass walls of the palace. Turning everything gold, Evan woke slowly, still unsure if last night had been a dream. He looked at the golden candy on the table and smiled faintly. "No dream," he whispered. "I'm really here." Moments later, a soft knock came. A young alien attendant entered and bowed. "His Majesty, Evan Holt. The Queen requests your presence in the Star Garden." Evan blinked, surprised by the title. "His Majesty? That can't be right." The attendant smiled carefully. "Those are her orders." And just like that, the day began to feel strange again. He followed the guard through long, shining halls. Every alien they passed bowed coldly to the Queen's order, but looked at him with silent hate. He could feel it, like invisible knives behind his back. Still he kept walking, his boots echoing on marble floors. The Star Garden was unlike anything he had seen. A dome of crystal opened to the sky, filled with glowing plants and streams of liquid light. The Queen stood beside a tall tree whose branches sparkled like stars. When she turned, her smile was soft, but her eyes carried storms. "Evan Holt," she said, "you once gave me a small gift. Today I return it," she motioned. And servants brought forward a chest made of living metal. Inside were glowing orbs, credits, and royal stones worth more than any human could dream. Evan stepped back. "Your Majesty, I don't need riches." She tilted her head. "Curious, then what do you need?" He answered quietly. "Truth?" She studied him for a moment. Then she dismissed the servants with a wave. When they were alone, she said, "This palace is not what it seems." "Evan, power here is thin as glass," he frowned. "Someone wants you gone," she nodded. "Many do. They hate that I remember a human's kindness. To them, mercy is weakness," Evan sighed. "And me being here makes it worse?" "Yes," she said, "and that's exactly why I need you here." He frowned. "You need me?" Her gaze softened. "When I was a child, I saw your courage. Now I need it again." Before he could answer, an alarm echoed through the palace. Sharp and sudden, guards rushed in shouting, "Explosion in the West Wing! Protect the Queen." She turned instantly, commanding her soldiers. But before anyone could move, smoke filled the garden, and a bright flash tore through the air. Evan felt the ground shake as something exploded near the walls. When the dust cleared, he saw one guard lying dead, and a weapon near Evan's feet. The other guards froze, eyes wide. One shouted, "The human! He has a blaster!" Evan looked down, stunned. It wasn't his. He lifted his hands. "Wait! That's not mine!" But no one listened. Dozens of guards aimed their weapons at him. The Queen's advisor, a tall alien with golden armor, stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Your Majesty, he's the assassin. He planned this attack." Evan shouted, "No! Someone planted it." But the council members entered, whispering fast, twisting truth into lies. The Queen stood silent, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said softly, "Leave us." The guards hesitated but obeyed, leaving only her and Evan in the smoky garden. For a moment, neither spoke. Evan's voice broke the silence. "You don't believe them, do you?" She looked at him, her face calm but her eyes full of conflict. "I don't know what to believe," she said. "But I do know this. Someone wants you dead to reach me." He took a slow breath. "Then I should leave." She shook her head. "If you leave, they'll kill you before you reach the gates. The council has already decided your guilt," he frowned. "Then what can I do?" Her answer was simple, quiet, and dangerous. "You can trust me. Or you can die with your truth." She stepped closer, placing a small crystal in his hand. "Go to the old tunnels beneath the palace. Show this to the gatekeeper. He owes me a debt." Evan looked at her, confused. "You're helping me escape?" She smiled sadly. "You once risked your life for me. Now it's my turn." Before he could speak, distant shouts echoed, guards returning. The sound of boots and orders. The Queen stepped back quickly, her face cold again as others entered. "Take him," she commanded. The guards grabbed Evan roughly. He looked at her in shock. "You said—" Her eyes flickered with a hidden meaning. "Trust me," she whispered, almost too low to hear. They dragged him away through the halls. Outside, lightning cracked across the sky, turning the city silver as they pushed him into a dark cell. He still held the small crystal in his hand. He stared at it, feeling its faint warmth. Somewhere above him, in her golden throne room, the Queen faced her furious council. They demanded the human's death, but she only said one line, "The human lives." Under my word, and for the first time, the great alien empire trembled. Not from war, but from a single human act that refused to die. The cell was dark, damp, and cold. Evan sat on the hard floor, his back against the wall, staring at the small glowing crystal in his palm. He turned it slowly, feeling the faint warmth it carried. The Queen's last words echoed in his mind. "Trust me." He wanted to believe her. But outside the cell, alien guards marched with heavy boots, and whispers of traitor filled the halls. Hours passed, no food, no light, no hope, until suddenly, a faint hum came from the crystal. It pulsed once, twice, then projected a small blue hologram. The Queen's face appeared. "Calm and distant, Evan," she whispered. "I cannot protect you in the open. They will kill you by dawn. Follow my light." The hologram vanished. A small beam from the crystal pointed to the back wall of the cell. Evan stood quickly, pressed his hands against the wall, and it slid open with a soft click. Revealing a narrow passage behind it, he didn't hesitate. He stepped into the tunnel and closed it behind him. The air was old and wet, filled with the smell of ancient metal and dust. Dim lights flickered along the path. He followed them carefully. The sound of alarms echoed far above him. She must have ordered a false security drill to cover his escape. After a few minutes, he reached a heavy door. He touched the crystal to it, and the door hissed open. Behind it stood a tall, scarred alien guard with one cybernetic eye. The guard looked at him, then at the crystal. "I owe the Queen a life," the guard said slowly. "And tonight, I repay it." He handed Evan a cloak and a small pulse blaster. "Follow the tunnels to Dock 7. A ship waits for you." Evan nodded. "Thank you." The guard said nothing more, only pressed a hand to his chest, a sign of respect, and vanished back into the shadows. Evan ran through the tunnels, the sound of pursuit growing behind him. Somewhere above, the Queen was facing her council. He could almost hear her calm voice holding back their rage. She was risking everything for him. He couldn't understand why, but he knew he had to live, for her. He reached Dock 7. The gate opened to the open sky of Valar Prime, glowing with lightning and storm. There, hidden under a large tower, waited a small black ship. Its engine hummed quietly like a heartbeat. As he climbed in, a voice greeted him through the comm. "Evan Holt," it said. "The Queen sends her regards." The pilot's chair was empty. The ship's controls moved on their own. The Queen was flying it remotely. The engines roared to life and the ship lifted into the storm. Guards appeared below, firing plasma bolts into the sky. The ship tilted sharply, escaping into the clouds. Evan gripped the controls, heart pounding. "Where are we going?" he shouted. A voice replied through the speaker. "Calm and firm. To the edge zone where the Empire's eyes cannot reach." The clouds glowed red with fire as energy blasts followed them. He looked back to see royal war drones chasing. Hundreds of them, small, fast, and deadly. Evan clenched his teeth and took manual control. He had piloted old cargo ships before, but this vessel was different, faster, alive. He twisted between lightning bolts and meteor fragments. The drones followed like a swarm of angry wasps. Then the Queen's voice spoke again. "Evan, engage the silver switch under your console." He found it, flipped it. The ship's wings spread wide and released a field of blue light. The chasing drones froze mid-air, their systems crashing instantly. Evan's eyes widened. "What is this ship?" The Queen replied softly, "It carries a part of you." Her words confused him. "What do you mean?" he asked. "When I built my throne," she said, "I remembered your kindness. I studied human science and human compassion. This ship's core, it's powered by that idea." He blinked. "You built this because of me?" "Yes," she said, her voice fading with emotion. "Your act of mercy was not forgotten. It became the seed of change." The ship finally broke through the storm and entered space. Below them, Valar Prime glowed like a jewel. Evan sat in silence, staring at the stars. He still couldn't believe any of this was real. He had been ready to die a criminal. Now he was flying the Queen's secret ship. Then her voice changed, urgent now. "Evan, you must listen. The Council has declared you a traitor to the Crown and humanity. They are planning to erase Earth's name from the galactic record. If they succeed, humans will be forgotten forever." Evan's eyes hardened. "What do you want me to do?" The Queen's voice softened. "Find the beacon. Activate it. Let them know humanity still breathes." The signal ended. Evan sat in silence as the ship entered hyperspace. He looked at the candy still in his pocket. The same one from that night long ago. He smiled faintly. "So this is what it means to trust," he whispered outside. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the ship vanished into the void. Behind him, on Valar Prime, the Queen stood before her furious council. They demanded war, they demanded punishment. But she stood firm, her crown glowing bright. Her final words to them echoed through the hall. "Let them call him traitor, but history will call him human." The ship moved silently through the stars. Evan sat in the pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the endless black sky. He had no idea where the Queen's ship was taking him. only that every jump carried him farther from Velar Prime. He looked down at the small glowing candy in his hand. The same candy he once gave her. Now it was the only thing keeping him calm. The ship's system spoke in a soft female voice. Coordinates locked, destination, Sector 7, Edge Zone. Evan frowned. Edge Zone? That's dead space. Nothing lives there, the voice replied. Correction. Something hidden lives there. He leaned back, whispering to himself. What are you planning, my queen? Hours passed. Stars blurred into lines as the ship jumped through light-speed corridors. In the silence, Evan explored the cabin. He found shelves of glowing crystals, each carrying a faint hum. When he touched one, a hologram appeared, lines of code. Ancient human symbols mixed with alien script. He froze. This is human, the ship's voice confirmed. Data fragment, human protocol, compassion directive. Evan blinked. Compassion directive? That's an Earth research project from before the collapse. He remembered stories. Human scientists once tried to program empathy into machines before their empire fell. No one ever knew what happened to that code. But here it was, hidden inside an alien queen's ship. A message flashed across the console. Decryption requires human DNA signature. Evan hesitated, then pressed his palm on the scanner. The lights flared blue, and the ship's systems unlocked new files. A recording played. It was the Queen's voice, calm but emotional. Evan, if you're hearing this, then I've broken the laws of my world. When I became queen, I searched every ruined world for traces of your people. I found the human code, a system built not for war but for understanding. I used it to rebuild Velar Prime, but now the Council wants it destroyed, fearing it will make us weak. Only you can protect it. Evan leaned back, stunned. She hadn't just remembered him. She had built her entire rule around the kindness he once showed, he whispered. She made mercy into technology. He looked again at the code. Strings of words flashed like living light. Each symbol pulsed with the pattern of a heartbeat. It wasn't just programming. It was alive. Suddenly, the radar beeped. Red lights filled the cockpit. Warning, pursuit detected. Royal fleet approaching. Evan looked outside and saw 4 alien warships dropping out of hyperspace. They found me, he muttered, gripping the controls. The ship's voice said calmly, activating protocol human defender. The ship glowed blue, its engines roaring louder. Energy shields formed like wings, spreading light across the void. Lasers fired from the warships. But the energy bent around the human code field. Evan shouted, let's see what you've got. He pulled the throttle, weaving between blasts of plasma. The small ship moved like lightning, each time a warship locked target. The ship's core pulsed with human patterns, predicting and dodging perfectly. The Queen's voice returned through the speakers. Evan, don't fight them too long, and they want the code. You must reach the beacon on Orion Station. It holds the last link to Earth's lost fleet. He gritted his teeth. And what happens if I activate it? Her voice softened. Then humanity will rise again, and the galaxy will remember why they feared your kind. He felt a chill down his spine. He'd spent his whole life as a nobody, a worker fixing machines. Now he was flying the most advanced ship in the galaxy, carrying the key to humanity's rebirth. The pursuers drew closer. The ship's shield flickered. Alarms blaring, he whispered to himself. I didn't survive all this to die here. He flipped open the emergency panel. Seeing another switch labeled Empathy Burst, he pressed it. A massive pulse of blue light spread across space. The attacking ships froze mid-flight, not destroyed, but disconnected, their pilots overwhelmed by waves of emotion. Evan stared at the sight. The weapon didn't kill. It made them feel. Tears formed in his eyes. She turned mercy into power. When the light faded, all 4 ships drifted silently away. Engines offline, Evan's ship limped forward. Smoke rising from its sides, he entered the new coordinates manually. Next stop, Orion Station, he whispered. As he leaned back, exhausted, the candy fell from his pocket and floated in the air. He smiled weakly. You really remembered, didn't you? Far away, on Velar Prime, the Queen stood on her balcony staring at the same stars. Her advisor approached nervously. Your Majesty, the Council demands to know why you let the human escape. She didn't turn. Because he carries what none of you understand, the heart of humanity. Lightning flashed across the alien sky. And in that light, her reflection showed not just a ruler, but a child who once tasted kindness and built a kingdom around it. Space was silent except for the hum of the dying engines. Evan sat in the dark cockpit, breathing hard. His ship floated through debris and frozen light from the battle he had just escaped. Every bone in his body ached, but he couldn't stop now. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. Reach the beacon. Awaken them. He looked out at the coordinates ahead. A giant abandoned station drifted in space, half broken, half glowing. Its surface covered with ice and dust. Orion Station, one of the first human outposts before the fall, now forgotten. Surrounded by silence and the ghosts of history, the ship's AI spoke. Warning, energy reserves at 4%. Evans smiled tiredly. That's enough to light one candle. He guided the ship toward the docking bay. Metal screeched as he landed, the lights of the station flickering like dying stars. He stepped out, boots crunching against frost. His breath fogged the air. Every wall carried marks of the old human empire, faded flags, cracked signs that read United Earth Command. It felt like walking through time. At the center of the great hall stood a large console covered in dust. He wiped it clean with his sleeve and saw a phrase carved beneath the glass. Humanity never ends. He swallowed hard and pressed his hand to the scanner. The console blinked weakly. System offline. DNA detected. Access granted. A soft blue glow spread across the hall. The old machine slowly awakened, humming with deep power. A hologram appeared, a woman in a human uniform. Voice log active, it said. Then her voice filled the room. If anyone hears this, you are the last of us. The fleet sleeps beyond the Orion belt. Only a human heart can call it home again. Evan's chest tightened. He whispered, then let's bring them home. He pulled the Queen's crystal from his pocket. It pulsed in his palm, glowing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He placed it in the center slot of the beacon console. The floor began to vibrate. Blue lines of energy ran across the room, spreading out into space. Outside, the station lit up like a star. A giant beam of light shot from its core, reaching across galaxies. Evan watched it through the cracked glass. He didn't know if it would work. He didn't know if anyone was left to answer. But he hoped, for once in his life, he truly hoped. Then the console spoke. Signal sent. Awaiting response. The lights dimmed again. Silence returned. Evan sat on the floor, exhausted. He whispered to himself, maybe they're all gone. But just as his eyes began to close, the darkness outside changed. Stars started to move. No, not stars, ships, hundreds, then thousands appearing out of hyperspace. Old, massive, and powerful, human warships. Their hulls marked with the same flag he saw on the wall, the lost human fleet. Evan stumbled to his feet. Tears filling his eyes, he laughed weakly. You actually came back, his ship's comm crackled. A voice spoke. Old, deep, human. This is Admiral Reyes of the Terran Fleet. Identify yourself. Evan choked up. Engineer Evan Holt, survivor of Velar Sector. Humanity still lives. There was silence, then a low, emotional reply. Welcome home, son. Far away on Velar Prime. The Queen stood on her balcony as alarms filled the skies. Her generals shouted, human ships. They're here. The council panicked, demanding war. But the Queen raised her hand, her eyes shining with pride. No, she said. They're not here for war. They're here for truth. Moments later, the sky above Velar Prime filled with blue light. The fleet formed a wall of shining ships that stretched across the heavens. The humans didn't fire. They only hovered in silence. A statement of presence, of return. The Queen looked up, smiling. She whispered, he did it. A communication link opened. Evan's tired face appeared on her screen. He smiled faintly. Guess your candy paid off. She laughed softly. You've awakened gods, Evan. He shook his head. Not gods. Just humans. Then the humans sent a message across the stars, not a threat. Not a declaration of war. Only one sentence. We remember you. The galaxy stopped to listen. Worlds that had mocked humans now stared in silence. Aliens who once called them weak saw something they could not destroy. Compassion stronger than any weapon. Later that night, the Queen walked alone to her balcony. The stars glowed brighter than ever. She whispered to the wind, you once gave a hungry child candy, and gave an empire hope. Evan's ship drifted in orbit, his voice faint through the comm. And you turned that hope into a kingdom. She smiled. Together, then? Together, he said. The stars shimmered. Two worlds, human and alien, and finally standing side by side. Bound not by war or fear, but by one small act of kindness. A man giving candy to a starving girl. A girl growing into a queen who remembered. And a galaxy learning that humanity never dies. It only waits to be remembered.